YOLO. Do you think man is capable of being moral on his own? Or does he need some form of higher power, whether it be religion or the law, to dictate morality? I personally fall into the latter, and the main reason for that being the main talking point today, moral relativism. See, what moral relativism is basically something in this geographical region is considered good, and something in this geographical region is considered evil, but it's the same thing. The example? Human sacrifice. Most of Europe said human sacrifice was bad, but the quote-unquote New Worlds of South America had human sacrifice going on to the sky god Quetzalcoatl. Who was right? Is it that whoever is militarily stronger and conquers the other gets to dictate what is good and what is evil? That falls under the notion of the old world, being might makes right. Whoever had the ability to conquer was meant to rule by divine favor. They were chosen by the gods. But the age of reason and intellectualism would dictate otherwise. And then that also brings us to the law. Does the law set forth a moral standard or only a legal standard? Without law and order, we devolve into chaos, mass violence, us versus them, left versus right, Hatfield versus McCoy, Montague versus Capulet, and we break down back into barbarism and conquest of each other, murder, slavery, pillaging, razing cities to the ground. So the law is needed, but I do not believe the law to be moral. The reason for this, we can look back at history and see that every race at some point in time has been a slave, and it's been legal for them to be a slave. Whether it was early America or all the way back to the ancient Egyptians, people have kept other people as property, which is immoral. So the law is set to decide legality, not morality, which is a big thing because there are a lot of people who base their morals on the legal system, which, as we've seen, the legal system can change depending on who's in charge and what's popular at the time. Which brings me to my next point. Is the majority rule considered what is moral? For example, if 51% of a population believes X, Y, or Z to be moral, does that inherently make it moral for that population or for everyone who comes in contact with them? The numbers game. As long as you have the majority rule, you're right. But this once again bleeds into moral relativism. Because if the majority of people believe something to be moral, and they come into contact with a different group of people who have a differing belief system, saying that X, Y, or Z is immoral, who is correct? We need to find out what universal principles are seen as good throughout all history. Things that people from different races, religions, cultures, and creeds have all unanimously agreed supersede humanity. And that's not an easy thing to do. It might be easier to look and see what people have all agreed is terrible and that all cultures have hated. But if you start looking into the darkness, don't be surprised if it blinks. It's like Nietzsche once said, those who fight with monsters must be wary lest they become one. So if we only focus on the negative things that people have hated, we're going to only see negative things. If we only focus on the positives, we'll probably only see positives. But herein lies the first challenge. Most cultures, races, religions do not agree on almost anything. You can get a group of 100 people together, and you'll find it hard-pressed to find something that they all agree on. There will always be at least one person who disagrees, making a universal good almost impossible to define. So, once again, do we go with a majority good? And then there's the other thing, which is most people throughout history did not leave written records. So we're not going to be able to compare and contrast with everyone. We've got stuff from the Greeks, from the Egyptians, from the Romans, but most Pacific Islanders or native tribes in Africa, their stories or history were oral stories told from generation to generation, lost to the sands of time. So, being able to compare and contrast, we already have a very limited data pool from which to draw from. So, of the written records we have to filter out things that are agreed upon by the majority, since all people didn't have written records, and those who did have records didn't speak on every subject and topic. So from the records that we do have, from the races that have persisted their writings or clay tablets that have been discovered by archaeologists, we've been able to find a few certain inalienable traits that across culture, race, and religion are deemed good. The first of these moral traits, and one of the most easily argued of them, since there are different viewpoints based off of cultures, is compassion. Compassion and or kindness is seen as good across many different cultures, religions, and races in the modern world. In the ancient world, where brutalism, barbarianism, and bloodshed was the average everyday norm, being compassionate was a sign of weakness. It was allowing an enemy to escape, to potentially grow stronger, gain allies, and come back to harm you later. If you did not eliminate any threat with extreme prejudice, you were leaving the door open for a counterattack. In the natural world, we can see this with things like lions. When a new male lion comes in and kills or drives off the previous male lion of a group, one of the first things he'll do is he'll kill all the previous male lion's cubs, slaughtering the children that could grow up to challenge him one day. That way only his own children will be able to grow up. This brings us to our second universal good, which is the denial of what is natural for a higher pursuit. It is believed that by conquering our base instincts of eating, reproducing, and so on, we can attain a higher state of spiritual or intellectual enlightenment. This was a very popular belief among the Greek philosophers. Some of them would even partake in multi-day fasts before debating philosophy. That way they could deny their flesh to try and feed their spirit. The thought process being we are more than the sum of our parts. And it was this thought process that was shared by people hundreds to thousands of miles away or hundreds to thousands of years apart. Aramaic scholars, or even Buddhist monks. Multiple groups of people, all with varying religions, came to the same conclusions. Denying your natural instincts in pursuit of a higher purpose and being was seen as a universal good. The next universal good seems to have come about from hatred, surprisingly. The hatred of betrayal, the hatred of being swindled, lied to, cheated, the hatred of dishonesty. It's impossible to have commerce, trade, or even just basic business if the person you're doing business with is secretly having their thumb on the scales, cheating you, lying, swindling, and betraying. There is no sense of trust or brotherhood and fellowship. Thus, the hatred for dishonesty and the need for societies to work together birthed the universal good of honesty and integrity. The next universal good is fairness or justice, often also seen as karmic retribution. It's those who do wrong should have wrong done to them. Those who have wronged me should be wronged. Sometimes people want their pound of flesh, whether that be metaphorical or, in the case of the old world, barbarically literal. If someone was wronged, slighted, cheated, they wanted to have revenge. Now, constantly having revenge against people leads to the Hatfields and McCoy situation that we talked about earlier. So the need for the law came about. The law was to be impartial and to make sure that, quite literally, law and order prevailed so that societies could continue. To be able to be secure in your own personal safety and have personal property that the law would protect, that would ensure a level of fairness to where if somebody did wrong, they would be forced to do right by those. That is necessary and agreed upon as good. But how it's implemented differs from country to country. Some Arabic countries will quite literally chop your hand off for petty theft, whereas some of our Western countries will allow repeat violent drug offenders back out on the streets, putting others in potential harm's way. There is no clear-cut way to handle the law, so the law itself cannot be what is moral, but it can be beneficial to everyone, a universal good to have law. The next universally agreed upon good characteristic or trait would be bravery or courage. Whether it be standing on the field of battle, protecting those you love, or going and fighting for rights for the less fortunate, the underprivileged, standing up against tyranny. Courage and bravery have always been seen as a higher ideal and a universal good, which is agreed upon despite race, religion, or continent and culture. The next universally agreed upon good or higher moral is loyalty. Whether it be feudalistic Japan, or communistic Russia, or even our modern-day capitalistic America, loyalty has always been seen and praised as a universal good. Tying yourself to a person, a cause, or a group, and standing by them through thick and thin, as long as they themselves aren't being immoral, has been agreed upon as a higher ideal and helped to share and form bonds that hold society together. Our next universally agreed upon good or higher moral form is wisdom. Whether it be from the Eastern philosophers who studied and meditated to achieve Zen-like wisdom and peace, or the Western philosophers who would argue till they were blue in the face till the wee hours of the candlelight on all manner of topics, the pursuit of wisdom has been seen as an inherent moral good throughout all of human history. The last universal moral or highest form of good that people were able to agree upon is love or charity. Being able to give to others to help them out, even though it could be at your own detriment. In resource-scarce areas, we see this, like with African tribes, sharing all their meals communally together. Even when one party member does most of the hard hunting, they are all given equal portions. Now, we would look at that and think communistic or socialistic, but in reality, it is one member willingly giving instead of having it taken to help others. There are people who have more money, wealth, and opulence than they could ever dream of, who are still miserable and get addicted to substances. And there are people who are living normal or impoverished lives who are truly happy and fulfilled. It all boils down to how much are you willing to help someone else out. And the ancient scholars had seen that. They had saw that palaces filled with women, jewels, spices from around the world weren't able to soothe the soul and make happy those who ruled. But the working class or the poor seemed to have something that the rich didn't. And it all came down to charity, how much they were willing to give and help their fellow man. Even in times of extreme famine, war, death, these things were all seen as a universal good throughout time and space, which is counterintuitive. Giving away your resources, your gold, your food, your shelter. It seems to go against every natural instinct you would have, which is one of the reasons that it is also perceived as a higher form of good, the denial of self for the betterment of others. Now, how does all this play into moral relativism? I'm getting there. I was setting it up. Here's how it goes. I do not believe mankind is capable of determining good and evil for themselves because of moral relativism. Our ability to rationalize and justify our deeds is too strong, and it seems impossible for everyone to agree on things. So we cannot for ourselves state this is good and this is evil. We need to have a higher authority. Of the two higher authorities, we have religion or law. Law also encompasses government, because the governments make the laws. So it really comes down to church and state. Law and God. Now the law, as I've mentioned, I feel is legal but not moral. Under law and governments, throughout time, atrocities have been done and have been permitted. Slavery, murder, theft, etc. America is one of the most litigious countries in the world. You can sue somebody for nearly any reason and take the clothes off their back. It's legal, but it sure doesn't seem moral. So law is out, which leaves religion. But whose religion is the baseline, the ultimate authority for what is moral and good? Do we go with the 51% mentality, the majority rules? Whichever religion has the highest amount of people who believe it, that will be the set good and evil, the baseline for our morals. Or do we go with the might makes right, whichever religion is able to dominate and conquer? That is the religion that we follow. That one sets up all of humanity's moral code and compass. Both of these thought processes we've touched on, and both of them are flawed. What we can do is we can take these higher morals, these universally agreed upon goods, these things that humanity as a collective, separated by hundreds to thousands of miles and hundreds to thousands of years, have all come to the same conclusion of these certain characteristics and traits being good. We can take those and we can use them as a filter for all religions, all moral or legal standings. We can use these as a litmus test, if you will, to determine which belief system fits these universally agreed upon ultimate goods. And then that one would be the ultimate determining factor on good and evil for humanity, since we are not able to decide it for ourselves due to moral relativism and the fact that we are all biased in some way, shape, or form. And speaking of being biased, I myself am biased on this topic, so I will not be talking about which religion, since obviously I would just pick my own. But I will leave you with the universal goods, the higher morals that have been agreed upon. That way you can use them for yourself to decide which religion you think sets up the ultimate good and evil moral standing for humanity. But thank you for listening to me rant on this for probably a little too long. I'm sure I could have gotten the information condensed in a snappier, quicker version, but I think the video turned out pretty well. But definitely let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the flip side.